So this may sound a little weird, but
Say
is Rob Gronkowski touchdown dependent?
it. Ooh.
Because he didn't score a touchdown until week 6. What's up, Guff Gang? What's good? What's cracking? We're here. Big trust. What? We're all back. Grown up fantasy football is here. James Reiner, Zach Maziarz, Joey Marino. And yes, we just did a fantasy showdown. And yeah, we're back. We're back in the arena to do yet another fantasy showdown. Zach, who is in the arena today?
Well, Joey, it's the season of giving, so we are giving you yet another Showdown episode. Today in the arena, we have TJ Hockenson and Rob Gronkowski. This is going to be big.
This is going to be a big one. Two big boys. So I think we're just about ready to get it started. But hey, before we do, Guff Gang, there's a little button down there, and it says subscribe. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take your mouse or take your finger and click or tap on that button. And you know what happens when you do that? The Guff Gang grows by one. Like, you know how every time you hear a bell ring, an angel gets its wings? Just like that. Every time the notification bell rings, you get a juicy morsel of fantasy football content.
James's heart grows one size.
That's right.
If y'all are having trouble following those instructions, we actually have an instructional video on how to subscribe right there. You can click on, go ahead and watch that.
That's
I just thought, actually, James's dad's butt grows one size.
It's weird.
If you haven't been keeping up, James's father had an operation. We're still recovering from it. The whole Guff Gang is recovering from the operation. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps heal James's father from the operation. It helps keep the Guff Gang growing and strong. And we love a strong Guff Gang. And speaking of strong things, let's get into today's fantasy arena. All right. In one corner, we have Rob Gronkowski, tight end for the Tampa Bay Bucks. He is currently the tight end 10 on the season. He's caught 29 receptions on 49 targets for 374 yards with 4 touchdowns. He's projected to get 46 receptions on 78 targets for 598 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's scored 9 fantasy points per game, and he is scoring 1.84 fantasy points per target. So that is Mr. Rob Gronkowski. Now in the other corner, we have TJ Hockenson. He is the tight end 3 on the season. He's caught 20 receptions on 30 targets for 373 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's projected to catch 64 receptions on 94 targets for 663 yards and 9 touchdowns. He is scoring 11.5 fantasy points per game and 1.95 fantasy points per target. Those are the 2 tight ends. Zach, do you have anything to add?
Can I start with my argument, Joey? This will be an argument point.
It's time.
I thought
Let's get into the arguments. Let's get into it.
Excellent. This is the only argument we need to know here. As I was typing my TJ Hockenson notes, I put THock, right? Because that's his nickname. That's what a lot of people call him. It showed up. I call him. It showed up as THock. And it reminded me of Mike Tyson saying sock. So I think that that's the winner right there, right? TJ.
Clearly.
THock.
You got a point there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that sums it up. I think that wraps it up for today's episode.
Thank you. Wow. Easy.
No, really.
No,
Keep
yeah.
going,
So,
Zach. Keep
all right.
going.
TJ Hockenson, he's got 53 targets. That's number 8 amongst tight ends. His red zone targets are insane. He's got 13 red zone targets. He is averaging 11.5 fantasy points per game for you, and 4 of those games are over 10 points. So we are really seeing a great breakout with him. On one side, we have, Gronk actually on the Bucs offense. They're adding pieces and adding talent like AB. Detroit side, we see them losing talent in terms of Kenny Golladay, who's, coming off injury and trying to get back to full health. So I don't know. Opportunity-wise, I know both QBs. I would definitely say Tom Brady is for sure better than Matthew Stafford, but Matthew Stafford's still no joke. And the amount of people that they have and weapons that they have, one of the concerns, and I can get into some stats about Gronkowski, but one of the concerns might be that they have too many weapons. The chemistry is there with Gronkowski, with him and Brady, but they have a lot of weapons there. TJ Hockenson, he's really cementing himself as one of those go-to targets right now for Detroit. On the other side of the ring, I guess, is Gronkowski, former WWE wrestler. So actually, is this unfair? Is this showdown
WWE
unfair?
champion, too.
Yeah.
He won
This
a
might
belt,
be an
guys.
unfair showdown, but I think in a real ring, he would definitely win. But he started off the season slow, and then ever since week 6 hit, so we kind of called this at the beginning of the season, him and Brady and the rest of the Bucs offense was a little rusty and needed some time to develop chemistry. And ever since week 6, he's averaged 10.9 fantasy points per game. And that's actually including that 0.7 dud against the Saints where no one played well at all. So if you take that game out, he's actually averaging 13.5 points per game as a tight end. That is gold right there as a tight end.
Yeah.
You can only
That's
dream
stupid.
about getting that. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got 49 targets on the season. What I love is that it seems like him and Brady are picking back up on the same page. He's got 10 deep targets, so it's he's basically just running streaks. He's got 11 red zone targets. His average target distance, 11 yards. To me, it just says it's basically running streaks down the field, and Brady is hitting them on those, and they're just trying to pick back up where they left off. I don't know. There's a great deal of talent in both of these tight ends. There's a great deal of opportunity, and both of these offenses are not. Neither of them, I would say, are bad offenses. I'd say both are able to move the ball very well. Yes, Brady is by far a better QB than Matt Stafford, but both of these offenses, I would be completely fine having any pieces of these offenses. So, James, what do you think? What are your arguments here?
Youth versus experience, a clash of decades, 2 different eras going at it. I mean, they're pretty much similarly built tight ends. They're both, Gronk's a little bit bigger. He's an inch taller, weighs about 15 more pounds. They're 40 times 4.68 versus 4.7. So talent-wise, they're probably about the same. Hawkinson's just been so reliable this year, though, and such a safe floor. He's been great this year. Gronk had a rocky start. Gronk's picking it up now, but did not have a good start to the season. But I like them both a lot, and tight ends are hard to come by, and these are 2 good guys, I think, that will help you out through the rest of the season. I like a lot of the points you brought up, Zach. Gronk and Brady are picking their chemistry back up. Tom Brady loves targeting Gronk in the end zone, so that's super valuable for fantasy when tight ends don't score that much. So when they catch touchdowns, that can win you weeks sometimes. Hawkinson just provides such a safe floor, and he's been reliable the whole season, though.
So this may sound a little weird, but is Rob Gronkowski touchdown dependent?
Ooh.
Because he didn't score a touchdown until week 6. And from week 1 to 5. Now, granted, like you said, week 6 was when they exploded. But he was 3 targets, 2 receptions, 1 target for nothing. He goosed you against Carolina. 7 targets for 6 receptions against Denver. 3 targets, 1 reception against the Chargers. And then finally got 6 targets and caught 3 of them against Chicago. All of those were pretty good matchups, too, against tight ends. However, in the games against who are defenses that are good against tight end, like Green Bay and Vegas, he had the same stat line. He had eight targets for 5 receptions in both games and had a touchdown in each. Without those touchdowns, or I guess not without those touchdowns, he probably would have been okay in those games. But going forward, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's probably getting you 6 to 7 points each week.
I would argue that that's good. I think all tight ends are pretty touchdown dependent.
Thank you.
It could be, yeah.
It was what you were about to say?
I was going to say, unless your name is not Travis Kelce, George Kittle, or Darren Waller, and you're a tight end, you're touchdown dependent.
Or Jimmy Graham.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I do like that point, though, Joey, because I do think most of the tight ends, if you have like a great production from them game, it is coming off the back of a touchdown. Tyler Hawkinson, TJ Hockenson, maybe his name's Tyler Johnson Hawkinson. I don't know. He actually is averaging 3.3 yards after the catch on his targets, though. So that does give you that little floor and safety of, okay, even if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's still very athletic, youthful, spry. Gronk. I don't know. Gronk, he might be a little bit more touchdown dependent. Yeah, but he might not be able to move the tank as good as he could before. But TJ, he gives you that floor of 3.3 yards after he has a catch. I would take that.
So right now, Rob Gronkowski has a 13.1% target share in a crowded offense right now because you've got Godwin, Evans, AB, and you still have Rojo and Leonard Fournette too. Hawkinson has a 17% target share in the Lions, and that's minus Kenny Golladay for a few games or so. Marvin Jones is still in there, and you got DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, the trifecta of Detroit running backs.
The best trio of running backs this league has ever seen.
And depending on how long Golladay is out, the target share could increase for TJ Hockenson. I don't know if the target share is really going to increase as much for Rob Gronkowski. I don't know. I'm a little worried about that.
So you think Gronk has current ceiling and Hawkinson still has room to grow, is what you're saying?
I think so. I think what we've seen, that hot streak that Gronk went on where, he was averaging, 10, 11 points a game for the past, 3 or 4 weeks. I think that's about as good as it'll get. I think Hawkinson, he's getting all kind of volume. He's bound to break off, a touchdown. He's got, 3.3 yards after the catch, like you said. It can only go up. It's not really going to go down. It can't really go down from there. So I think there's a little more room to grow with TJ Hockenson than there is for Rob Gronkowski. But do you guys want to look? Go ahead.
I was going to say, are y'all concerned after the dud Hawkinson put up last week? Only 13 yards against Washington.
Yeah, I'm as concerned as I would have been with Gronkowski putting up a dud the week before against the Saints. So it's one of those things. I'm not super concerned because that is within the realm of possibilities. Like we say, TJ Hockenson has a pretty safe floor, but he also still had that dud game where he really did just get 13 yards. So within the realm of these two tight ends, I do think the floor is still fairly low because you want to say these offenses are both safe offenses. But unfortunately, I don't know if that's the case. We saw it even with the Packers, them just not be able to move the ball at all. That is an offense where you would think, okay, by no means they are going to be destroyed. But I don't know. These two offenses, I could see them, especially with the Bucs, I could see them downplaying their opponent and having a bad week any given week to where Brady doesn't play well, and that just affects the rest of the team. So, unfortunately, I think that's a floor we're dealing with both of these. So I'm not super concerned that Hawkinson put that stat up.
I'm not concerned about it. I think Washington's a better defense than people think. And, it was a tight game back and forth and everything where you'd expect more out of Hawkinson. But, like you said, if you're not Travis Kelce, George Kittle, or Darren Waller, then you're not the number one target on your team. So you're not going to get that huge amount of targets and everything. But I think Hawkinson's can grow in that offense. I think Gronk is a little capped still. But do you guys want to look ahead at the schedule for these two tight ends?
Yes.
So coming up, Gronk has the Rams, then the Chiefs, or the Rams are 17th against tight ends, the Chiefs 6th, Minnesota 14th, Atlanta dead last, and then Detroit 13th. And for the Hawk, or THock, as Mike Tyson and Zach like to call him, he has Carolina, who's 21st, Houston 17th, Chicago, who's 24th, Green Bay, who's 1st, Tennessee, who's 20th, and Tampa Bay, who's 16th. What do we think about the outlook on these two guys? James, what do you think of one of these dudes?
Yeah, I think they both have pretty good schedules. But when we talk about strength of schedule for a tight end, I don't know how much like it really plays into it. I've seen tight ends blow up when they're playing the top ranked defense against tight ends. I think it's just a matter of, I mean, defenses don't plan to shut down tight ends. So
Unless you're Kelsey, Kittle, or Waller.
Yes.
yeah. It's I don't think it plays that big of a factor. I think they're both good schedules though, and I would be happy playing them in these games.
One thing I want to draw attention to is that, we're talking about who would we rather have rest of season. Gronkowski still has a bye that he has not served yet.
That is true.
So that's a week where 1, 2, 3, that's right before playoffs start where you're having to look at a bye week with your tight end if you've started to rely on Gronkowski. Whereas TJ Hockenson and the Detroit Lions have already had that bye week fairly early on in the season. So.
And one thing I'm going to point out about TJ Hawkinson's schedule, he's got Green Bay on the slate, who's currently ranked first against fantasy tight ends. I really don't think that's very true. I'm not sure Green Bay's defense is that great. Sorry, Zach. But we saw Gronk already put up, 16 points against Green Bay, or 14, I think. I think Hawkinson can do the same against them. So I think in terms of schedule, they're just about even, but I think I would give Hawk the slight edge. Just a very slight. One small hawk of an edge.
One small hawk for mankind.
Think about, too, there's 32 NFL teams, each with a starting tight end.
There are.
How many of those tight ends are even usable for fantasy? Because their points get factored into this.
Yeah, who's the Jets
strength
tight end?
against a tight end. Exactly. It doesn't.
Still Herndon?
Yeah.
He gets factored in. I mean, that hurts the average.
I'll let you know, I have been starting Tyler Eifert every week this year. Actually, that could have played into Green Bay being number one against tight ends because I'm pretty sure the Jags just played them last week, and Tyler Eifert's their tight end. So makes sense, actually. Yeah,
that's true.
Some of these rankings, you're right, James. I don't necessarily know if I do trust them fully. But then you see a good matchup, and you're like, oh, that's a shoe-in for a good game. So it goes both ways, I guess.
Yeah, apparently Chicago is 24th against tight ends. I guess that's true. I don't know. That defense is for real, though.
Yeah.
But are we ready to make a decision on these two beefy boys?
They are beefy.
I'm ready. Well.
All right, James, you go first then. You're ready?
Okay. I think it is going to be close. I think they're both very good. I think at the end of the year, Hawkinson will have more fantasy points because he had a more productive first half of the season. But from the rest of the season on, from this point, I think Gronk will score more fantasy points. I think he gets more red zone targets, and I think he will score more touchdowns. So I would go Gronk rest of the season.
Wow. All right.
Zach, you ready?
Joey, yeah, I'll go. I agree with James. I think Gronkowski, James, you said it perfectly. I think, Hawkinson might have more points at the end of the season just because of his first half production. These are both great tight ends, so I don't see them finishing too far off from each other, but I do think we see Gronk have more points to end the season, just in terms of his touchdown, the targets, the deep targets, his chemistry with Brady. And one thing, too, that I'm seeing is it just seems like with the deep targets and the routes run, they're pretty deep routes. So I know we talked about Hawkinson kind of having those good yards after the catch, but Gronk's air yards, he has 538 air yards right now, which is number 2 amongst tight ends. So I'm thinking a lot of the plays where he is involved and that the ball is going to him, they're a deep enough target to where you're going to get your money's worth, even if he doesn't necessarily get a touchdown. So give me Gronkowski rest of the season.
This is tough. Both of them have a chance to explode pretty much any week. Gronk has probably the better offense. Detroit's really not as bad as people think they are on offense. It's tough, but I think for the sake of argument, I'm going to go with Hawkinson.
Nice.
I think there's more room to grow with him. I think the target share is better. There's a lot less weapons on that offense. I think Hawkinson's developing chemistry with Matt Stafford. And with the running game so somewhat inconsistent and them not wanting to commit to a single back, they could get down in some games. And I think when there's a chance for them to get down, Stafford could rely a little bit more on the Hawk. But that's going to do it for today's episode. In the case of Gronk versus Hawk, it was decided 2 in favor of Gronk and 1 in favor of THock. And that one is me and Mike Tyson. So it's 2. But if you haven't already, go leave a comment down below on who you think you would rather have rest of season, Hawkinson or Gronk. And hey, leave a comment and tell us who we should put in the fantasy arena next. Who is worthy of the showdown?
Adam Gase.
Adam Gase versus
a coach showdown.
A pile of
never
poop.
never done one.
That's right. Maybe we'll do one. I don't know. If you leave the comment, we'll definitely take a look at it. But be sure to leave a comment. Be sure to like and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Be sure to grow up and be sure to get guffed.